We're ready.
Yes, we're ready.
We're here celebrating the 11th annual Encephalitis Conference here in North America, FACES 2014 Encephalitis Conference. My name is Wendy. I'm president of Encephalitis Global, and I am an encephalitis survivor.
And I'm Dale, and I'm on the board of directors of Encephalitis Global, and I'm an encephalitis survivor.
And I'm Ingrid, and I'm an encephalitis survivor since 1995, and I am also on the board. And in addition to celebrating our 11th meeting, we are also celebrating the International Encephalitis Day, the first one in
the World
Encephalitis Day with the British Encephalitis Group. So we're here, and this is our largest crowd this time, and we're having a great time. So.
Excellent large crowd.
Yeah, really great. So.
Good afternoon. I must admit, I'm tempted, to react to what I've heard all this morning, but, I wrote my book called God's Humor, My Life After Encephalitis, is specifically not being medical. So I will try not to get into too many medical facts and figures. And the only reason why I actually wrote this book, or actually had a ghostwriter writing this book, because unfortunately, after my encephalitis, being a CFO for Transport, Public Work and Water Affairs, as a financial director, I cannot write properly anymore, and I certainly cannot count. I can calculate, but I can't count. So I had a ghostwriter writing this book, and the only reason why I did it is because I entered into a level of society I never ever thought I would be. That is what I call the last step of life. It is amazing because if you have an encephalitis, people don't recognize you. If you have an encephalitis, people think you're crazy. And what's crazy about me, there's nothing more crazy about me than there was before I had an encephalitis. And the only reason that I sometimes cannot find the words, or that my humor is not as quickly or as livid, or, well, it is still as sharp as it should be. And because I trained in an institution for 2 years before I could actually walk again, talk again, and be where I am now. The fact that I asked, that is going to go back to the first speaker, is that I asked about all the testing, is that once I did my IQ test, I was finished. I was written off in society because my employer immediately said, a gap of 40, sorry, we can't even bridge a gap of 12, let alone 40, you can't live on your own. And the Netherlands hasn't even got a society for meningitis patients at all. We only have 7 alive, 6 in institution, and me, says the idiot, living together with my big partner Art. And if you compare having an encephalitis when you're HIV positive in the Netherlands, everything is protected by legal rights. They subsidize the HIV patient with 1.6 million euros a year. Meningitis and us 7 encephalitis get €1.20 a year. Now that triggered me to write this book. Because of my previous job, I know Parliament very well. I think they liked me more as a CFO than they now like me as post-encephalitis syndrome. And I can tell you in the book you will read that they probably didn't like me at all in the beginning anyway. Talking about my book, my ghostwriter, Elise Van Welie, she was supposed to come here. It's just that as I get €1.20 a year, you can imagine that it's very difficult to have a ghostwriter, write a book, print it, and then sort of come to the States, is that the taxpayer said, no, 2 people is enough. So that's unfortunately, and there's something I would like to read about what she said, because Elise van der Berg used to work for me when I was a CFO, and I said to her, you know what, government is going to drive you crazy, please find something else to do. And then later on I met her as my ghostwriter, and she says, during 2005 and 2008, I worked with Marius at the former Ministry of Transport, Public Works and Water Management. When Marius asked me to do the job of writing his story in 4 weeks' time. 4 weeks. I immediately accepted his challenge. In a very short time, we were able to turn Marius' message and that of those around him into a book sitting before you now. In a short time span, I've seen the power and sharpness of the old Marius, but I've also become unfortunately acquainted with the new version 2.0 Marius. So this is to honor Elisa, who actually made it possible to write this book in 4 weeks. And that was only because I decided far too late to fire the previous ghostwriter after he didn't produce for 6 months. I mean, that is now typical encephalitis. Normally I would not even blink, and in 2 seconds you would have made the decision. And nowadays I dwell on it 6 months long, and I think, whoa. But let me tell you about this morning. Typical day. And we had it today as well. I had everything planned and organized, and I counted the books and everything, and it was packed, and it was there in the suitcase, and we went to breakfast, and I decided to still be dressed already before breakfast, everything on time. We arrived here, we forgot the books. And that's life. So we went back and we collected the books, and that's why I was 5 minutes late. But that's something that is in my brain. I can't help it. I mean, the problem is that my intelligence hasn't sort of been hit. But the other side, to translate it into doing, is a nightmare every day. Now, of course, you can be very negative about it and whatsoever. I mean, I've ended up in court cases where I forgot to put on my trousers. And you know what the worst thing is? You enter court without trousers while taking public transport toward the courthouse, and nobody ever says anything to you. And I think I wrote something about it in the afterword. You see, I can't read with my glasses on. That's also something new. Please give us a hand and help us. It's just not done, I mean, people will not in the Netherlands say anything. And, I've had, I can imagine different shoes, but, can you imagine sitting in the tram without trousers? That's life. Anyway, page 3 of my book is, I think, the most important page that it is, and it says, I dedicate this book to my best buddy ever, Art. That is actually what I think the best page of my book. Now, apart from Art, there's somebody else, and that's a lady. It's quite surprising that our household was now actually extended with a lady that actually entered our life. And one of the things that I lost with counting was something that came back, and that is being able to rhyme. And it's very funny because it just pops out, or it pops in, and then it's just there, and then I must write it down. And if I don't write it down immediately, I lose it. And if I write it down and it's written down, then I forgot what I was doing before I was writing down the poem. So can I show the lady in the house, which is called, she is called Henza Umoja na Inkokuleko, which means in South African, in the Zulu language, which is my original country, that she's the free spirit of the winds. Free spirit of the winds. Henza from southern Rhodesia was actually a freedom fighter, and it was a woman. So that's why. And when I found her in South Africa, because originally this book also was, born in my ideas already when the Minister of Health and a lot of other stuff around asked me, you are the first academic in the Netherlands that survived the encephalitis. Can't you write a book about your story? But 3 weeks before, I asked her for a certain amount of points that you need to get a service and helping dog. And she was the one who actually sent me the letter. No, I'm sorry. I mean, according to statistics and according to your gap, you must live in an institution, and in institutions we don't supply serving dogs. Signed, Minister X. 3 weeks later, she asked me, you're living on your own as the only one in encephalitis. Can you please write your story? That's what I call God's humor. Otherwise, I can't explain. And when and I found her, because I was not allowed to buy a dog in the Netherlands because of the fact that I didn't have enough points. Can you believe it? This can only be first world. And I found her in South Africa. I trained her myself. It took about half a year to get her import license, and then suddenly, you know, there was this rhyme coming out that says, if you don't mind, I'm going to read it now to you. May I introduce to you Henza? Good day, reader. Excuse me if I may. There's this lady that has become the center. That's right. Even better, a new queen, so to say. Yes, I agree. Never thought a lady would enter my life. And why? Because my nightmare about it is true. She calls the shot, tells me where and when to go. What and wherever she sticks to me like glue. What path, what place, where to go to too. Now, I must admit the beauty of her is stunning. Her character is bright, fast learner, so it's all great. With it all, she even keeps me in shape with running. I think you would like her, ask her out for a date. Her whole being is calm, direct, and strict. So from day one, she's the boss and I obey. And when I'm good, I get my face fully licked. The lady I fell in love with, me being gay. She's the best of the best service dog I ever met. I'm proud to introduce to you my one and only lady in red. Now, it's funny that this one came in English. But there's two others that I've actually used as a sort of metaphor for myself, for my own behavior. That is in Dutch, and I'm sorry, I couldn't translate it into English. It's a very strange moment always like that. Going back to the book, it was in 2010 that I had my encephalitis, but it was a long process. In October 2010, I lost my way, let me put it that way. There were signs for a long time already, you know, that in meetings, you know, I would suddenly change into English as a language or into Spanish, that I couldn't find the exit of the building, but nobody ever told me. It's funny that people don't actually, you know, they are suddenly afraid, or they think, you know, it is part of you or whatever, I don't know. But there have been signs before, and then in October 2010, I dropped nearly dead with a very high blood pressure in December 2010. It was full force. After that, I went 18 months into an institution to train. I think it's very good. It's absolutely superb to be able to train professionally, but it's not long enough. I've spoken to people with encephalitis in the United States who've been training for 10 years and not back at work. Now, of course, I'm written off. After 2 years in the Netherlands, your employer is allowed to fire you with all financial securities. I mean, I have no complaints about that. But it's such a shame because, I mean, with it, you lose everything that you've got medical-wise. And since we are not on the chronic list of diseases, there is nothing. There is not even a retrain possibility or sort of what I'm actually fighting for in the book. And trust me, the book will find its way to politics. A sort of, you know, like a monthly metro card where you can actually, you know, once a week go back to that institution and then you can, you know, pinpoint down your weakest points and then train it again. Train. Now I do it by myself. Dutch is not my mother language, but if I do not train Dutch words for a week, I can't write it again. It's lost. Well, the same government tells me, you know, if you don't speak Dutch, you don't belong here, you're out. So it is, you know, God's humor that is actually keeping me in balance. In 2012, I saw on the internet suddenly from the British Society of Encephalitis competition. And the competition was the expression on encephalitis, and I wrote that was actually my first ever narrative, whatever you call it. Is it a narrative that you call it? I think so, eh? Poet, whatever. And I sent it in, and we flew out, and it was in November, and I'd just been given honorable discharge, and I won. And that was the first time that I thought, you know, maybe I should write down my story and help some other people. Because in the meantime, I've met quite a few meningitis ex-meningitis patients that want me to tell me about my story because they think that I'm enthusiastic or that I still have the drive to go through and whatever. Well, I'll tell them, it's most of the time it's the chicken or the egg, right? I mean, where do you start? I mean, if you don't open up your mouth, but it is absolutely embarrassing for the Netherlands to say that we've got people there that are originally Dutch that had a meningitis 13 years ago and that cannot write and read since then and have never ever been given the chance to train. That's shocking. And nobody knows. And that's why I wrote this book. But I found it very difficult. It was a difficult process to write it because you go through a lot and your private life is out in the open. But seeing so many different cases of meningitis where people actually, don't get, it's a neurologist that says, what the hell are you talking about? You survived, so don't complain. Say thank you. That's actually what he means. Then he says, get out. You haven't got any temperature. Your body temperature is fine. The virus is killed. Go home. And then you're home. Then you're at home. And then what? Nobody knows. There's nothing for us apart from €1.20 a year. Now, and then I'm lucky that the Meningitis Society actually decided, to take on the other 7 encephalitis patients as well. And because financially it's a big burden, you get 7 people in, but the financial burden on that society is about half the budget, So that's one. Since I have an encephalitis or post-encephalitis syndrome, I have major fights with the banks. And the reason for it is because, of course, I've got time. I practice. I can't count. So I go into my own mortgage. Let's see how that works, with interest rates. And I practice. And I think, now, hey, where is the dividends? Where is the remuneration? And so I start asking, of course, in the institution and so I start writing letters to my bank. Ooh, that was now the finger on the wrong spot. So it goes so far that they've actually blocked all my funds. That's how far it goes. That's the power of banks in the Netherlands. It's amazing. And if now I look to the other people that that I meet from meningitis that cannot read, that cannot write, but do have a mortgage. Can you imagine how must they survive? So and that was one more reason for me. And I'll tell you, at page 40 or something, I sent it to the board of directors of my mortgage bank because they didn't want to help me with the book. That they were very clear about that. And I said to them, just so you don't miss it, it starts at page 40. But I laugh about it and I see the humor about it. But it is a nightmare. And especially for my partner, life has so suddenly changed. Before we were just working together, and I can't say I'm not having a good time because we have a good time and we laugh a lot. I can remember that I bought new wine glasses. There's certain things that you don't throw away in life, right? There's crystal glasses and Wedgwood where you eat from. So I bought new crystal glasses, but I fell off the stairs, and I dived right on top of all these glasses. So there was one that survived, and the company that actually sent it from Austria gave me a call if I was running a restaurant because I was ordering so many glasses. and last week, you see, it's in the acting that is so, and my mind goes there. And I trained the intelligent part, and then there's half the neurologists and psychiatrists and psychologists and a lot of there's about 120 different people that I saw in that training in the institution. There's 2 ideas about it. My idea is to train what I'm good at and let the rest. It's like risk management. I can't count, so I can't pay in coins. What the hell? €2 a day. But, I will never master it. Now, the Dutch focus on training what you cannot. The English focus on what you can. But the problem is that your intelligence is getting better and better and higher and higher. So your IQ climbs up on the wrong side of the road. And then I tell them, well, sorry, darling, I'm living on the wrong side for a long time, don't worry. But it's true, I mean, and then it goes up, and your other side, which is already a lower IQ, is not trained as much as the good side, the normal side, whatever normal is. So it leads to a bigger gap. And the bigger gap leads to what I find sharpness in life. I've become, sometimes I can be very sharp and very depressive, but I mean, I'm on medication that takes away the edges. And maybe I should have done that earlier. I write about it extensively in my book, why I suddenly decided to go onto medication. And the main reason is because I was on Valium 5 milligrams a day. That helped me, but I was on it for 2 years without being a chronic disease. You must be very careful because it can be classified as taking drugs like cocaine, and then your insurance company kicks you out. Welcome to the first world company, and that's why you get forced already to have a look at other medication. We have a lot of fun because I see the humor of it. But I mean, I must admit, life has been hell ever since. And I just hope that the focus, on further down, as a top civil servant, I was used to help. I was used to contribute. Now I hope that my story that was written by Elise will actually excuse the word help in the Netherlands. The shit will hit the fan. Because, I mean, something has to happen about the way it's financed. My head psychiatrist that actually treated me for 18 months in the Netherlands says that the protocols that we have in the Netherlands, also on brain damage, non-congenital brain damage, does not include meningitis and encephalitis. And you know why? I was shocked. It's in the book. He says, write it. He says because it's so widely spread, normally the damage that it's done in the brain, that you cannot actually control it with a protocol. And if we can't control it with a protocol, we can't control the finance. If you can't control the finance, we can't help you. It's in the book. And then I think, wow, that is a different spot in society where I've never ever actually been. And then I'm the lucky one because I can still talk and reason and shout if I have to, though I do not shout too many times anymore. And the mortgage bank, the banks itself, that is a real problem. That is what I find. That also gets me nervous now, since they actually, through court, actually blocked my funds as well. In order to protect myself from myself. You see how that step by step goes. But it's that same bank, and I mean, we had to laugh. No, you didn't have to laugh. You were fuming in the hall, but I was laughing because of the amount of energy that I have to put in daily to remember Dutch words. I had to prove to the lawyers that we actually had put on this whole banking drama, that I had to prove once more that it was badgering, and the banks were actually, taking me for a ride, and constantly changing, creating chaos, everything that you and me, we can't actually handle. So I wrote them a letter that, due to the enormous amount of time training in Dutch was costing me, I was changing my communication into English. Boom! Now, 3 weeks before, they sent him a letter that they could not communicate with me anymore in Dutch because, yes, is that Dutch, that's unbelievable. 3 weeks later, I write them a letter that I would start to communicate into English. They said my Dutch was perfectly fine, nothing wrong. So there was proof. But we still on that very, very, very scary scale, whether or not you're going to win it from the banks, because the banks have a very big position, and especially now in a financial crisis, it is a nightmare. Nobody hardly ever sees it, but the mortgage rate in France is 2%. In the Netherlands, it's 5%. Where goes the 3%? Well, that's a normal question, isn't it? I mean, I can't count, but I can still calculate. No answers. No answers. When I went to England, back to 2012, I had a very low self-esteem. And I was very depressed. And I mean, it was very funny because I was never a depressed person. And I couldn't believe it, I mean, but it was still, all that voice constantly, I don't know if you'd recognize it, but that voice constantly, that whether you see a car or a train or a tram or whatever, it says, jump, 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 and you're finished, life is finished. And then the other side says to you, no, it's going to clear up the mess, man. And then you start laughing and then it's over. I've had that for a long time. Now, I hardly ever say it to anybody else because, I mean, they think you're crazy because you can hear voices. Well, I can still hear a lot of voices, I can tell you, but they're not as negative as they are anymore. But in 2012, that November London evening where actually, I got first prize. Very surprised. That was the first time that I thought, yes, I can do something. But that was already 2 years later. A long time for not having any self-esteem, not being able to participate, to find. That's what my story is also about, is that it is so difficult to find a new spot in society where you belong, where people actually accept you the way you are. Now, we've got societies in the Netherlands for every color, for every behavior. Gee, we have it for gay people, but we haven't got it for encephalitis. And as long as there's no awareness, because that was something that the CEO, Ava, of the British Encephalitis Society said to me. She says, but your poem actually gives the disease a face. And that's why I love faces. Because there's so many faces to the disease, it's my impression that people just sort of blocks it away. Because, I mean, this is going to be difficult now. This is going to take a lot of energy. And even with me, after 26 years of working for that same department, being a top civil servant, even there was doubt whether or not I was now ill. Did I have a brain damage, or was it not purely being drunk and being on drugs? I had to take them into court first. Once it was established, oh yes, fine, then, oof, the red carpet is there again. But you have to go through it. And what worries me, I don't know what it is in the States, is for me it's all right, because, I can still stand up. I have my insurances, my private insurance, my income is privately insured, we do it all privately. But now look at the bus driver. Who's going to help him? Nobody. And it's shocking to see that we've got 20,000 people that are actually originally Dutch, that have meningitis, that they cannot read or write or can't, or, somebody said to me, I cannot even sew a button to my thingy. And I said, why not? Well, she said, but why didn't you do anything about it? Since when is that? And she said, 15 years ago. And she said, well, I was sent to an institution, and then I started, talking about what you call it, the combination of thinking and doing and whatsoever, and training that. And then the lady who was sitting across me said, oh, no, we're going to approach this the holistic way. And she says, the only thing that I want is my button to sew on. And it's for me, it's unbelievable. Because I come from Africa. I think in Africa we've got it better organized. First of all, there's far more encephalitis because of HIV, so that people diagnose it much earlier anyway. And it is far more normal also and accepted. But this looks like a third world country, for me, that a European country actually rules out a chronic disease. And then once again, I was very lucky because I was a top civil servant. I was, and then you get appointed by Her Majesty the Queen, and she takes care and whatever, So, I mean, it's done all in a gentlemanlike way. But, I mean, I'm the exception to a lot of other people. That's why I wrote my book.
Say they're okay to go back to work. They're costing the company money because they're
On disability.
disability.
Yes.
Costing the company. So the company gets the doctor to sign that they're okay to come back to work. They come back to work, they get fired because they can't do the job, and they get zero for benefits.
I know, but that's, in the Netherlands, that used to be the case, and that's why we have all privatized that. You pay your own private premium, and then you have your scales and then your risks. And, but yes, it is, for especially the lower income, it is a problem. It is a problem. But, not for HIV, huh? Do you know that, if you're HIV positive, legally, you do not even have to mention it to your lawyers. That your insurance, your life insurance, you get against the same premium as you as a healthy person get it, because they've got the ABC construction. I don't know if you know what that is. A is the HIV patient. It actually goes to a society. There actually is the life insurance between A and B, but B actually, as a society, will go to an insurer. So A and C is never connected, so nobody will ever know that you've got HIV and you've got your regular premium. Officially sanctioned by government. That's what integrity is in the Netherlands, apart from the banks.
Even here, a county like LA doesn't recognize traumatic brain injury when it comes to schooling. You can't put TBI down because they don't give them any special schooling for traumatic brain injury. You're going to say it's something else. When I was working for neuropsych with traumatic brain injury and PTSD, we were always lying on the paperwork to the insurance companies and the schools because they wouldn't classify either one of those to receive any benefits.
I found it amazing.
It's crazy. Just like, yeah.
But does HIV also have this special position in your medical and society and whatever? Yeah, of course, because it's contagious.
Maybe not quite as much as the Netherlands.
But it's also got a special position. Yeah, of course, it's contagious. And, having something in your brains, the only thing that can be contagious is to lock you up. That's it. Are there any questions? Because I've just lost what I wanted to say. I can't help it.
Excuse me.
I have a question which is about your dog.
Yes.
Is it a Belgian Shepherd?
No, it's a long-haired German Shepherd.
Okay, but not a Belgian Shepherd.
No, it's not. No, it's a German Shepherd, yes. And maybe there's something I can still contribute to what I've become to value as something that I cannot do without, and that's having a mentor. I've got 3 mentors, and for the last 3.5 years now, that every Friday, one of the 3 is available for me for an hour to actually go back into my week that I've had, to see what I've done, where was now too much stress, where did I fall, because my balance is my biggest problem. Immediately when I start having stress, or even, I'm getting such a dull person, even the slightest change in routine will immediately lead to unbalancing, and then if there comes this one call or this one phone call, and doof, and you fall like a brick, huh? And then of course, if you fall and it's outside, inside you break stuff, that's fine. But outside, other people see it. They call the police, I've been accused of drunk, a drug addict, whatsoever. In ambulances, all hospitals in The Hague, they know me. Because after 10 minutes, I'm fine, So by the time the ambulance is actually at the hospital, I stand up and I take the bus back. Yeah. It's God's humor. And, but there's one thing that I can really, if there's anything that gives me a lot of support and also helps me for not diving into what I call that very heavy feeling of isolation, being on, that can actually feel it on your chest, is having a mentor that is actually still actively at work, that knows you from before your illness. And I've been very lucky. I mean, I've got a mentor. I mean, yeah, she is built out of humor. I mean, I love her. But she's strict, you know. I mean, like my dog. I mean, all the women are very strict to my life. But without her, for example, or my other mentor, he works for KPMG, he's chairman of the international steering group that I used to work with, you know, with fraud and corruption and investigations and whatever. He's now my mentor for 3.5 years, and you know, it gives me so much energy, you know, to look back through and to learn. Because, you know, where can I go to? I mean, there's no institution that will take me. I can pay for it privately, but then I prefer London because Wellington is much better than Holland. But, you know, flying in and out, you know, I did it in the beginning. I mean, and it's £5,000 a day. And some idiot in the Netherlands decided that normally it would be tax deductible, your medical care. You know, I mean, you could tax deduct. No, not anymore. If your insurance company doesn't pay at least 10% or 50% of the cost, it is an unnecessary treatment that you follow, so you can't deduct anything. Well, I mean, then your costs are going to... So that's also something that I'm fighting for in Parliament, you know, that has to change. And, you know, including HIV money. I mean, I found it. So maybe I can, for ending my story to you, I wanted to read to you something that I think, you know, is absolutely a superb way of how I interpret it, or how I mean, or how I talk about God's humor being my life on encephalitis. As somebody who works as a director of planning and housing, can you imagine, at Wits University in South Africa. Now, can you imagine doing their planning and housing at a university in South Africa? And he says to me, oh my graciousness, once a protester, always a troublemaker, no matter what brain rewiring challenge is thrown your way. Thank you very much. Before I wanted to finish yesterday, I wanted to tell you something about colors. I have looked through, not realizing it, through my eyes in black and white for a long time, because it doesn't take as much energy. And it was my eldest cousin that suddenly sent me a picture of his granddaughter, and I saw blue. Blue being, that's why the reason my book is blue. That was the first color that I saw. And I do not, I mean, I'll go through it quickly, because he opened an exhibition this month in honor for encephalitis in his own hospital. He won first prize with it. And it is what I started. This was the first picture that he actually sent me when I discovered blue, and I called it Flight Delta 000 to Brain City. Go ahead, yes. This is in the Netherlands, the famous Philips clock. Very famous, very blue. Yes. Once again, you can see the flight taking off. Did you know that this is actually a parking place for bikes?
No, wow.
Bowling for brains. And here you can see, once again, blue and yellow, because yellow was the second color that I started to realize. Eindhoven, the central station there, with all the blue lights. There you see the parking place of the bicycles, where they've actually make different zones in blue, and I cannot, you know, I mean, I could see height suddenly in colors. Now, this one had to be taken because the guy that's standing in front here is Mr. Fritz. Fritz was the owner of Philips when it was still the golden age. Here you can see that I had to let him know, you know, where I could see blue, you know, and I mean, I had to go right through the street and then name the shops. So he's actually making it more and more difficult every time. But every day I get a picture of him, from him. This is A very special one that I called, this is called the Bridge to Brain Port. That was actually designed long before my encephalitis. And in a committee we decided, to use LED lights as a power consuming issue, but also every hour the color of the lights changed, and we dedicated it to congenital brain damage. Not knowing that 10 years later you see here's a different color and another different color. And every hour it gets a different color, and we, as Transport and Public Works, we dedicated it to And My Famous Blue. And it's all the same bridge. Now, and of course, Multicultural Holland, they even have a mosque in blue. And there we are back again to flight 000 to Brain City. Well, thank you. I just didn't want to not showing it to you. Thank you very much again. Because colors, suddenly I realized, I can look through colors, but I can push it away when I get too tired. And neurologists think, yes, this guy's crazy, but I can do it. I don't know. I started with black and white. Now I can see colors, not all of them yet. And when I'm tired, it goes back into black and white, and I've got more energy. Thanks very much. Floor is yours.